Greetings, everyone, and welcome once again to the Pan Future Society podcast. Today is Saturday, April 29th, 2017, and this is episode number 47. I don't have any extended ranting to do at the top of the show this week, so let's get right to the news of the moment. One of the bigger headlines from this week was that for an artificial womb that has been developed at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and they have been doing animal trials with this, and they have had a fetal lamb inside this artificial womb. I'm going to link to this in the show notes. It was kind of the big news this week, so you've probably seen it. So just follow the link in the notes if you haven't. I'm not going to go into great detail here. But I will also use this as an example of good science journalism. There were a lot of headlines about an artificial womb that can save premature babies. And that's the goal. Hopefully it will. But it's not there yet. What works for other animals doesn't always work for people. But it's looking very promising, and it's a very fascinating technology. I did actually mention the possibility of this way back when I did my Generation Ships episode and Space Colonies episodes as a possible method for future human space colonies, is that you send out eggs or maybe even just DNA, and then you grow your first colonists this way. It's a storyline that's appeared in several science fiction stories, like Arthur C. Clarke's Songs of Distant Earth, and somewhat also in the Interstellar film. So go check that link and read all about it. Another news item this week that I also want to get to, that was kind of buried in all the other hoopla. A scientist has invented a way to trigger artificial photosynthesis to clean the air. The University of Central Florida professor Fernando Uribe Romo and his team of students have created a way to trigger artificial photosynthesis that breaks down carbon dioxide into different components. Much like plants do when they do their photosynthesizing, but instead of creating food for the plant, they were able to break down the carbon dioxide into two reduced forms of carbon called formate and formamides, and these can be used in in fuel cells, as solar fuel. That could potentially be used in place of substances like lithium-ion batteries and hydrogen, which require a lot of temperature and pressure to get them to work. And that is just very, very cool. If you could scale this up to a point where you're just sucking carbon dioxide out of the air and turning it into batteries. I did not do enough digging to know what happens to this stuff after you turn it into batteries, if it wears out, or if you have to at some later time dispose of them in some way that doesn't just put carbon dioxide back into the atmosphere. It would also be worth knowing at some point how much energy it takes to do this process. And I don't see any mention of that in the article I'm referencing, but it wouldn't really do you much good if this doesn't become efficient enough to take more CO2 out of the air than it puts back in by being powered by some power plant somewhere, running on coal or something like that. But fascinating technology, and I'm sure it will continue to develop, and in the near future, you might buy some product powered by a battery that has also helped reduce carbon dioxide in the air. And now, it came from outer space. In space news this week, space mining is starting to attract a lot more attention. This week from the Washington Post, space mining may only be a decade away. Several private companies, including Deep Space Industries, Planetary Resources, and Shackleton Energy, are trying to develop technology to mine asteroids and other places in space. And there is also a lot of investment from Middle Eastern states like Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Whatever you might think of the oil-producing countries in the Middle East, a couple of them, especially the UAE, are very interested in advanced technology and investing in things that will still be profitable when there is no more oil. And at the very least right now, while they've got tons of money, they are spending it on the future. So, among other things, in addition to the private companies and investors like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, working with their reusable rockets and other technology to try to bring all the costs down to put things in space, will probably sooner than you think make it cost effective to go to asteroids or the moon and to mine for materials and in particular perhaps water, because water will be crucial to further space exploration. Not only can you just use it for your drinking and whatever, but you can also split it into oxygen and hydrogen to use for air and fuel. Among other efforts, the UAE has launched a multi-pronged effort to establish a space industry and has so far invested more than $5 billion. That also includes 4 satellites already in space and another due to launch in 2018. Also, Goldman Sachs wrote a recent bit of research explaining that space mining could be more realistic than perceived. That is, I guess, investment bank speak for pay attention to this. It might be worth something. Now, there is definitely a part of me that says, nobody's going to do any of this unless they can make a bunch of money at it. But if these technologies keep getting better and keep coming down on price, I guess that's a trade-off. We go out there and do things like this, like mining asteroids, or eventually having colonies in space because it makes money for someone. I would like us to do that just because it's the cool thing to do, or the thing that we'll need to do to get off the planet and save ourselves. But I guess at the beginning it's going to have to be for profit. Hopefully it will not destabilize our own political system or something by doing so. But, space mining is in the future. Planetary Resources in 2012 estimated that a football field-sized asteroid could contain up to $50 billion worth of platinum. Now, it's also an interesting idea of going out and mining these rare materials. Are you going to crash the prices back here and change things? If suddenly gold is $5 an ounce instead of $1,500 an ounce, what does that change? Or does it accelerate advancement because a lot of these rare materials are used in technology and they are hard to get a hold of? So keep your eyes on the skies for mining jobs in the future. Well, nah, probably not. It's probably going to be all robots. And that is your news of the moment. In the main segment this week, longevity. The quest for a longer life dates back millennia. Egyptian papyri describing fruit concoctions for a long life have been found. Alchemists quested for the philosopher's stone. As far back as the 15th century, some were experimenting with diet and hygiene. Fantastic tales of fountains of youth, such as the one supposed to have been found by explorer Ponce de Leon, ancient myths like that of Methuselah, and horrific examples of attempted perpetual youth like tales ascribed to Elizabeth Bathory, who was rumored to bathe in blood. But what is really working in science and medicine to help us live longer, and what is around the corner? And are we ready to adjust to a world where more and more people live so long? Stepping forward in time, science becomes the foundation of longevity research. In many ways, we have already done much just by having better healthcare, hygiene, and medicine. Life expectancy in the United States is about 78 years now. Not a perfect measurement, but a valid reference point. In the Middle Ages, averages were in the 30s. By about 1900, that number was only about 40 years of age, give or take a few. There were always a few outliers who managed to live to very old ages, but that was a rare exception, often among the wealthy, not exposed to the hardships of most people. Life expectancy is an average based on the year of your birth, but many variables affect individuals and can appear to skew the number, like infant mortality and the rare individual living to 90. Over much of human history, average lifespans didn't change that much at all. But in the early 20th century, advances in germ theory, vaccinations, and other medical knowledge greatly increased expected lifespans. In the latter part of the 20th century, genuine efforts to find medical life extensions began more seriously. Prior to this thinking, longer lives were a byproduct of curing or avoiding disease. Research and treatment wasn't done strictly with the intent of living longer. It just so happened that by having better medical care and knowledge, you tend to live longer. In 1980, Saul Kent and William Falloon created the Life Extension Foundation. They promoted unorthodox and untested methods and were eventually indicted on criminal charges, though the charges were later dropped. While they may have had good intent, I think it is wrong to conduct bad science for what you might think is the right reason. The ends don't always justify the means, and we look back in horror and shame at some of science of the past, like the Tuskegee syphilis experiment. If you're going to do science, do it right. This may be a good time to mention, as with a lot of medical topics, there is a ton of crap, woo, and snake oil out there. If anyone tries to tell you the FDA is lying, doctors want you to be sick, here, just buy my essential oil and you'll live longer, don't believe them. The whole topic of real medicine versus alternative medicine is for another show, but for this show, I am sticking to well-done science, proper experiments with valid peer review, and I believe even at the very edges of our knowledge and ability, proper science can be done. In the early 2000s, Dave Goebel and Aubrey de Grey founded the Methuselah Foundation, awarding grants for anti-aging research. De Grey also founded SENS Research Foundation in 2009. Google joined the crowd in 2013 with Calico, researching technology-based methods of extending life, and Craig Ventnor founded Human Longevity Inc. in 2014, focused on studying the genetic aspects of aging and potential genomic treatments. By 2015, universities began to collaborate with these groups not only to extend life, improve quality of life, but to end death altogether. Many proponents of this research believe that death should be treated as a disease like any other. In May of 2015, the FDA approved clinical human trials for metformin, a diabetes drug that has shown anti-aging properties in mice. I plan to get further into these groups and the current research in the next show. I believe that the more we learn about aging, the more we will find that our genes are the largest ruling factor. Some people are just born to live longer, and all the other stuff like diet and exercise may have only a minimal effect. Very recently, the oldest person in the world died. Italian Emma Morano died at the age of 117. She is also believed to have been the last living person born in the 19th century, in 1899. She attributed her long life to eating raw eggs and kicking her husband out of the house to get away from a bad relationship. Her doctor of 27 years said, "When I met her, she ate 3 eggs per day, 2 raw in the morning, and then an omelet at noon, and chicken at dinner. And she rarely ate fruit or vegetables." Does this mean you should eat raw eggs or never eat apples to live a long life? Probably not. At least not as the secret to living longer. Ms. Morano also had a mother who lived to be 91 and had several sisters reach 100. Currently, Jamaican Violet Brown is the oldest living person at 117 also, just a little younger than Emma. Her secret, she once said in an interview, was, "Really and truly, when people ask what me eat and drink to live so long, I say to them that I eat everything except pork and chicken, and I don't drink rum and them things." So, depending on whose advice you want to take, eat chicken or don't eat chicken, and hope that you have good genes. Anecdotes aren't very good in a scientific sense, but they are nonetheless interesting. Of all the centenarians I've read about, I can't recall one saying, "I lived this long eating quinoa and kale and dabbing essential oil under my armpits." Just let this discussion also be a reminder that life is complicated, and there's never one weird trick to anything. Someone who tells you that there is probably just trying to lighten your wallet. Next week, more on the groups I mentioned earlier and the current research that is ongoing right now, intended to help us live longer, live better, and maybe even forever. And what are the social implications of living a much longer life, or of having many, many more people live into their 90s? Are we as a culture, as a society, prepared to deal with that? And that's your show for the week. Thank you once again for joining me. I hope you enjoyed last week's special edition episode on the Science March. It is in the podcast feed, although there is not a page for it on the website. And when I did that, it went better than I expected, because I've never done sort of that live on-the-spot interview asking strangers to say things thing before. So I may do things like that more in the future, just to throw out some random thoughts into the podcast feed every now and then. I did those interviews with my phone and a little dandy little microphone attached to my phone, and the quality came out better than I expected too. So I may just plug that mic into the phone every now and then and give a little blurb about some current event and throw it in the podcast feed. Let me know if you like those things. Most likely I will not do any website page for those specific things. They're sort of unofficial episodes. Maybe I should gather them on a blog page, on a blog post from time to time, something like that. Anyway, come to the website, panfuture.org. Email me, Sean, SEAN, at panfuture.org, or blah, 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 at panfuture.org. It'll get to me no matter what. And I hope everybody has a good week wherever you are. It is definitely springtime here in the Pacific Northwest, and I am enjoying it. And I have enjoyed bringing this show to you once again, and I will talk to you again in the future.